Hey, welcome everybody to a great show. I'm titling this one Caribbean Farming with Ted, Markus, and Will. This is going to be an incredible deep dive into the agricultural aspect of essential energy and how we have been supporting farmers across the country and really the world over the last several years. But this is a super important topic today because the food security, food quality is top of mind in the United States right now with the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again. It's really driving this awareness that food is it's not just a thing off by itself. It is a nutrition, and the ingredients that go into the food are really important. And what you find if you keep backing up is where the food is grown, the environment that food is grown in is really, really critical for the quality, the nutritional density, and the health of that food, and the health of the farmers who are working those fields. Essential energy has been a big part of doing that with farmers already and helping improve the quality of the soil, the livestock, the plants, all the animals and the wildlife through our geofield conditioner. And what once was considered pseudoscience becomes science when it starts to work and it's proven. And over the years since the geofield device was invented in the 90s, it has been proven. And that's why we have an opportunity to talk to some incredible experts today about what they're seeing, the need, and how it applies to various agricultural landscapes, and specifically today, the Caribbean. We may get into some other ones as well. So thank you for joining us. Please stick through to the end because there are going to be nuggets throughout it all. And I'm really excited to bring on some dear friends that I've gotten to know now over the last several years. We have Dr. Ted Emanuel, we have Will Winter, and we have Markus. And I'm going to let them do a quick introduction so you get to know them as well. Dr. Ted, go first for us.
Thank you again, Dan. When we met, it was one of the best things that ever came to me concerning health and wellness. The reason is our environment. Clean environment, you have better food, better quality food. And because I function in the realm of organics, okay, I go for quality. Because today, the food, the air, the water, they're all poison. Most of these things, that's global. It's not just in Jamaica. But certain things are allowed to pass in the Caribbean that normally would not even make 10% of thinking about passing elsewhere, especially in Europe. Okay? In America, they crack down. Now they're getting ready to crack down even more so on people who are unscrupulous and overburdening the land wherever they are with chemical fertilizers rather than allowing the land to take care of itself. Just like the human body, we have to manage it. We have to take care of it. We have to be mindful as to where we take our mind and body, who we go around, where we go, how hot it is, how cold it is. I just had a conversation before we went on air with Will about the cold climate that he's in. He's screaming, he wants to come to Jamaica. Come on down, Will. It's warm down here. Our people are loving and beautiful. When it comes to love, we care.
Yeah.
Come on down and get some of our golden sunshine. Just don't overburden.
There we go. So Dr. Winter, why don't you give a quick introduction about yourself as well?
Thank you, and thank you, Ted and Markus. Hello. I met Dan about 4 years ago, and I had been damaged by my cell phone. I'm a holistic veterinarian, and I spend most of my day, with one of these up to my head, and I did not know how poisonous this was. And I had already experienced a cancer right here that was malignant melanoma, and right here, which was a malignant squamous cell carcinoma. And then, God sent me 2 messages, and it took me I'm a slow learner, I guess. But then I met Dan, and I said, I wish I would have met you 10 or 20 years ago, but I'm glad now. We're seeing damage to plants and animals and soil all over the place. And I have to say, Ted, I had a career crisis of 10, 15 years ago. I knew I had to practice differently than I was because I was trained in Western medicine. Didn't believe it anymore. I'm a sailboat captain and I instruct sailing. So I moved to Tortola. I moved to the British Virgin Islands. So I got a taste of the literal taste of the food down there, and I found most of it in Road Town was imported. Of course, it's for the tourist, and it's a gourmet food. And I realized how little footprint there was for agriculture on Tortola, and I wished I could go back there then and just work there. And of course, my work has broadened. I told Ted, Dan and I are missionaries out here in the North Pole, teaching people these things. I don't apologize for living in the Northland. I've learned a lot from cold weather, but Dan and we are missionaries in that most people have not heard of what we're talking about, and they don't believe it. You know, it's like because EMF is invisible. You can't see it. You can't smell it. Everybody in the industry is telling you, oh, don't worry about it. It's okay. Just keep using those cell phones and televisions and computers. But Dan and I see heartbreaking stories every day, and we see miracles every day where people have turned their farm around, turned their dairy around, turned their crops around. And a lot of farmers now have sick children or they're sick. You know, it used to be if you thought, well, if you live in the city, you expect to be polluted. So you move to the country to drink fresh water and breathe clean air. Well, it isn't true anymore. And a lot of the rural areas we work on are actually more damaged and more polluted from everything, from glyphosate, from factory farming. But now they're getting these 5G towers everywhere. Here in Minnesota, 6G. So this conversation is fascinating to me, and I just can't wait to hear more from Markus and Ted about where we can work in these tropical areas.
Yeah. Right. I mean, the tropics have been an area that has had a lot of satellite coverage and a lot of EMF explosion because a lot of areas jump from not having phone service right into self-service, right into the cell towers. And they didn't really have landlines in some of the more remote areas. And so they've had a lot of EMF exposure for a long time. And that brings us to Markus, because Markus is organic certifier farmer, hails from Germany. But Markus, please introduce yourself and what you're seeing there in the Caribbean from a farming perspective.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Dan, to meet again. You know, I very well remember when we first got the chance and opportunity, and here we are again. So thanks, Ted, you know, for sharing, bringing me on. Thanks, Will. You know, I think you have some very valuable experience here to share. In the context, for sure, where we are now here in the Caribbean, it is very important that we are looking at the things we not obviously see. We all sense them. We all sense there are great shifts, you know, and as you explained, you know, the shift is really very impactful. And this is even part of my journey. I spent literally all my adult life here in Jamaica in the Caribbean, working and interacting with farmers in this region intensely, and working and operating with soil and ecosystem and the dynamics of such as they inter-exchange. And this is a choice. So I call myself a farmer by choice, because I really step in, not to dictate, but I went that path in order to listen, in order to learn, and to be a part of a solution we might not be able to see as yet, but what we feel is right. And this feeling, you know, brings us together today as well, because we are unknown in the shifts of what is changing. We are realizing certain patterns are shifting, weather patterns throughout the Caribbean. are shifting, changing everywhere. The dynamics in the soil shifting, changing everywhere. Ecosystems are changing, the amount of small fish species, even vegetable species being lost during just during the last 3 decades. Even the quality of product which is being produced, in my eyes, is deteriorating significantly, and it's affecting our behavior and the way how we want to function. So we need to look forward to solutions, but we, just as Ted even rightfully said, and that's why we always have a very fruitful discussion, even between Ted and myself, reflecting on the human and reflecting on humus in the soil, which are so much one of the same animation. And there we need to seek the solutions by creating awareness. Through the awareness come that sense of reflection, or that sense of purging also. We need to purge from those rigid ideas where we just have a totally and solely profit-driven agriculture, slowly technology-driven agriculture. We need to have an awareness-driven agriculture where we focus on what technology is appropriate, and using technology really as a beneficial tool to build on the natural original laws of this universe of health, of life, which are so magically doing already everything, trying to compensate for our errors. But we need to come on board now, listen, and to do the little we can do to tune in correctly and to compensate on some of the side effects of some of the technologies we have been created, and be aware and assist each other to gain back balance.
You hit on a really important point of awareness, because awareness is your sense of being in touch with nature, being in touch with others, listening to what nature is saying. There's a big push for ag tech, right? This big 5G ag tech where everything's monitored and censored. You're using the cloud, you're using technology, and because of convenience or efficiency or the promise of higher yields and the promise of being able to add amendments and fertilizers and things in very targeted locations that make it easier, less labor, all these promises that this technology is bringing with no real connection with what's that going to do to the soil, plants, or the animals. Everything is frequency, energy, and vibration. And that frequency of all this technology is not being considered when we think of just putting technology out there. But if we slow down and are aware and listen and think, what is the best application for technology? There could be an application for some of that. You said it very well, that we have to slow down and consider it, because some of it could be really harmful. And let's be honest, robots aren't the answer for a healthy future. And that's where technology and those who in control want to take us. The people who run the AI solutions want robots everywhere, but that's not allowing us, the human and the humus, to stay connected and really get life, get that intersection with creation and with nature. So when you look at the landscape of the Caribbean, and you're an organic certifier, so you're on a lot of farms, what are some of the biggest challenges that the organic farmers are having right now in helping keep their land productive, rich, and vital?
It's really the imbalance we have been created. The imbalance, is expressing itself in the weather patterns, but also in the way how pest and disease emerge, because everything is kind of rantic. Nothing is behaving in a normal way. Everything is chaotic. So it's just like a cancer, it's just like diabetes, So overall, the ecosystem itself is expressing similar systematic places of inflammation. So in our farms, we have that inflammation underlying, and it being from the mind of the farmer to the condition of the soil, so that these natural systems are not functioning as effective as they used to, because not only the farmer is under stress, the ecosystem in the larger scale, in the macro as well in the micro, is as well challenged and undergoing the same stress, from the worm to the bacteria to the farmer himself. This is now a new challenge we are facing. We don't have access to that traditional farming information anymore. There are attempts, people are organizing themselves. So the solution is slowly being tried to create there by reawakening some of the old methodologies, but still they fall on a very rantic ecosystem now. It's easier to keep a human being in a tempered mood when the condition is well, but it's something else, when that person got a terrible diagnosis or is under attack or under full stress because raising 3 children and doing 2 jobs. And this is a situation often we have our farmers now in as well. It used to be a system where it was intergenerational. The whole family was present. Responsibilities could be shared. So there could be, the mind could be in somewhat of ease because weather patterns were predictable. This is not the case anymore. We're facing in agriculture the same things as we are facing in an imbalanced human being.
And Will, don't we run into that same thing here in the U.S.? Even though we're different latitudes, different typographies.
I meant to hear from Ted and Markus. Dan, you were talking about the future with robots and technology. When I was living on Tortola, I was very aware of that it was a colony. It was a British colony. Spent some time in St. Bart's, a French colony, the Spanish colonies. And these are slave states. The agriculture was for export, sugarcane, rum. These were the crops that the people were raping the land to achieve, the slaves, because their colonial presence. And I know that must be a factor for you guys to come away from being a slave state, land that has been seriously raped for 100 years. And then people from Africa, let's say, that were slaves, they've lost contact with their agricultural roots too. So just being there, I was extremely aware of the colony mentality. Tortola, where I lived, was a British colony. And the thing that blew me away there is that homeless people in Road Town can walk into a supermarket and they just give them food. They just walk out with free food. And I thought, man, I'm from America. Here you would go to prison. You go to jail or get taken out behind the store and beat up, But at least there was a blessing there from the British government to give people some food, and it just, again, things that I saw that was so different. I wish I knew more about your history, and especially like with Markus, how much slavery and export crops are still there. Also, how much government interference you guys have to deal with. Dan and I are constantly dealing with farmers, and especially with our current administration, that are being forced into a type of agriculture that's incredibly inappropriate because the government makes it easier to grow stupid food like GMO soybeans, GMO corn. You can't eat either one of them. And that's 90% of our agricultural land is growing stupid crops. And the government supports that. They're jettisoning the stuff that the 4 of us like to work with. The sustainable, regenerative farming here is being hammered by our government. You guys must be feeling it too from your governments.
Yes, may I speak to that a little bit? My main concern are the children. My concerns that I have, our children, would be going forward. We have to secure what little we have left.
There you go.
Okay. So organic farming is something that I am really big on. I lobbied in Washington, D.C. on Pennsylvania Avenue with Senator Schweiker, Proxmire, the late Eddie Arno, Bob Huffman, Leroy Colbert, Dick Gregory, and I. We were among the two black men back then. In the 60s and 70s, I was right there with my placard on Pennsylvania Avenue to save the organic industry, to save the health food industry. Okay? I went throughout the United States in various states educating and re-educating people about organics for the future, not attacking those who want more out of everything they do, so they use chemicals and so forth. I am strictly for organic farming, and I encourage farmers here as well as United States and anywhere I can go around the world. I went to China. I was invited by China. I went there and I spoke about the value and importance of organic things going forward. All right. I see the same thing here and throughout the Caribbean because people are easily bought, foolishly or whatever ambition they have. So I am saying I put the future of our nations, not just Jamaica, but our entire Caribbean nation, because again, things are hidden conveniently for profit. I don't knock people who have those kinds of ambition, but my purpose here on earth is to protect what is ours, our children. They are ours. The land, they must be educated. Our children must be educated on a level to know both sides so that they can decide where does the mother, the parent, where do they stand in allowing the children to be taught? Okay, so I am building a school. I'm in the process of doing that. It's taken forever, but it must be done because education is important. So when I met Dan and I met the scientists that he brought here and the technology and offered to clean up our land, including our port, the harbor, we went there and we examined the harbor and so forth, because right now the returning of fish life is very difficult to spawn. So here, what Dan and his partners proved to me the value of what they are bringing in here to help the soil and the whole farming. I was really turned on with what I saw and what I have experienced. In my house, I have a box with 12 plates, that protects not only my house, but my neighborhood from radiation damage. Now, how I know it works? There are plants in this house since Dan came here. They're here thriving like you cannot believe. It's like if they did, they never die. And the lush green in my house, every plant, and I, as a naturalist, I have plants in my house because I know the value. And they are green and lovely up until now, Dan, since you've left here and you put this unit in my house. My neighbors are protected.
Okay.
My neighbors. And they don't know, well, my immediate neighbors, I've run my mouth and shared with them. But other than that, other areas, they don't know. So I see more bees coming back into my house. Birds come here and live. I have it on film. So I'm living now with bees and birds.
Yeah.
Because of the unit being in the house. No, you tell me, I don't see what's coming out of this unit, but in my atmosphere, the atmosphere in my house is so lovely and different. It's like magic. I don't sell things in closing. I don't sell things here. I share the technology and the goodness, the benefits of what is to be received from the use of these things. Yeah. I have all kinds of people now sharing technology, not only technology, but how they feel inside. And I think that parents should find a way for every child that uses one of this, every child that has a laptop, every woman that put that laptop in front of her vagina, in front of her womb, and doing her work or their work, or sitting in front of this computer that I have here. It shields me from the rays coming on to me, so I don't work without this. I don't walk around or go anywhere without this. And I damn sure don't put anything in my ear that carries radiation. I rely on this, or when I'm working on my computer, I do this.
I was just actually up in New York State. You know, people who live in the city kind of understand that they're getting radiated. The EMF, the 5G, everything is really high. And people ask me all the time, farmers, people who live rural, they're out of the city. They think, well, am I getting zapped at all? I'm out in the country. And I was in New York and I was testing someone's farm. But he was 30 miles from a nearest airport, and he was getting hit with the radar on his farm, 30 miles away. And then the closest cell towers are about 3 to 5 miles, totally getting hit. We have the EMF meters that can pick those things up. We have the devices that can measure the energy quality on a farm, and we can see the signatures. So then I had someone call me yesterday. He had power lines going through his farm that he just purchased, and he wondered, am I going to have a problem there? The reality is, of course, because everything is frequency and energy, and the electricity is causing a stress response. Marcus, you mentioned inflammation. And it's not just people, it's plants, it's animals, it's the insects, it's the worms, it's the entire environment. There was a study a couple of years ago that showed the effect of this on wildlife and why this is, I think, one of the biggest issues the world is facing. We're all facing it, no matter where we live. But Will, we've seen some tremendous changes when a farmer decides and says, you know what, I am going to start to include EMF protection in my farming. And I think that's the biggest hurdle, is that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, a generation ago, you know, my grandpa didn't have to worry about EMF protection when he farmed. Mm-hmm. So I'm still farming the same land. I'm farming like he was. Why do I need to do that now? Well, the change in electrodensity or pollution, the radiation, is off the chart. It's 1 with 18 zeros behind it, times stronger today than it was in 1900. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely off the chart, and it's everywhere. And we're the frog being boiled in the pot of water. We don't notice it, but our animals do. Their pregnancy rates are changing, their conception patterns, they're not going into heat. The bees aren't homing. They're not signaling as well. They're not producing the honey. And even the photosynthesis in our plants are lowered, and for multiple reasons. Mm-hmm. But Will, I'd like you to speak. You're a livestock veterinarian. You've been working on farms. You have a lifetime, thousands of farms. And these people who have chosen to put these conditioners, what have you seen?
And by the way, the first thing I tell them is that this is new. Your dad didn't have to deal with this, your grandpa. But I say, here's the deal. If you have a boat with 10 holes in it and you fix 9 of them, you're still going to go down. This is another hole in your boat that you have to fix, even though you're not aware of it. I have to say, Ted, I had a agricultural experience that changed my life. This was 25 years ago. I was in Old San Juan. Went to a restaurant, and the waiters have bow ties, and it's just like a time warp. I got eggs for breakfast in Old San Juan, and I am a guy who doesn't eat runny eggs. I cook the yolk totally solid until that day. I had that egg in Old San Juan, runny, put it in my mouth, and I had a life-changing experience. I will never forget that minute that I tasted that egg with all that energy, and that yolk was bright orange, and it just filled me with energy. And to that day, 25 years ago, I have never cooked an egg hard since that experience. And that means that the chickens in Jamaica in that day were getting better oxygen. They were getting better, the plants had more chlorophyll. And that experience would not happen to me today with modern agriculture. That was only 25 years ago. I had an egg that changed my life forever. And then the other thing, I lived there, a lot of the locals would feed me what they called game fowl, which is, the wild chickens that are running around. And it's very common for people to put a little bit of corn underneath their window right on the road. And they had a little string around there. And when the game fowl would step in there, they whoop, here's breakfast. Here's a chicken in your skillet. Those chickens, unbelievable flavor, and free, of course. But that was my experience that you can't have today. And many of the farmers that Dan and I run into here, the first thing they tell us on the phone, they say, I don't understand this. I'm the fourth generation farmer. We never had problems like this. And I haven't changed anything. And now my cows won't come into heat. And the chickens aren't laying eggs. And I haven't done anything different. What happened? What's wrong? So then we have to be the bearers of bad news. We have good news too. But the bad news is you have a force that's operating on your farm that you didn't cause. It has nothing to do with your farming ability, with your animals, but someone is putting pressure on you that you've never had before. The good news is we have the plates that you were holding up, and Dan does something that no one else does that I've ever seen in agriculture. He gives you the opportunity to try it basically with no risk. You have 90 days and you're going to see something. Everybody, unless they're crazy, will see something if you have your eyes open. We reference the dairy farmers a lot because dairy farmers do something the other farmers don't do. They keep records. They have accurate records every day. They have the bulk tank. How many pounds of milk did she make today versus yesterday versus a year ago? So they keep these records and they pay attention to it because it's their lifeblood. They know how much mastitis she has because they check the somatic cell count almost every day. They know how much butter fat she makes. They check that every day because that's how they make money on. That's gold to a farmer. The other farmers may or may not see it. And the sad thing is I work mostly with cattle farmers. They're sitting at the coffee shop all day, and if they see their cattle, it's out the window of their pickup, so they may or may not notice it. If they measure things, and I do, our home farm, we have a scale on site, so we can measure how many pounds of gain those steers made. We know it's like when we do things right in the winter here, they can gain 3 pounds a day. In the summer, 6 pounds a day. But I guarantee you, if they're not using those plates of Dan's, that's going to be significantly less, 20-25% less. They may not be broke and they may not all die, but it's a serious loss of money in your pocket, loss of animal health. Oh, and by the way, your kid had ADHD and is autistic.
Wow. I was about to pick up on that, Will. I was about to pick up on that, but go ahead and finish because I would like to speak briefly about that.
Yes. Go ahead.
You're talking about the animals. If you are feeding, if a mother is breastfeeding and she's getting her food from that cow, that animal, the immunity building of her breast milk is most valuable. So if that cow's immune system or immunity is low, that would be passed on to that breastfeeding mother.
Right.
It is crucial that we think immune enhancement, building natural immunity. It is not something you speak, you have to work for. The plate is one of those things that will, again, enhance the quality of the environment. You mentioned chlorophyll. In order for you to make blood, you need chlorophyll.
Yes.
You can't make blood without chlorophyll. Okay? So it's important that we look at this thing from a holistic perspective and not shortchange. Know that we have new technology, we shortchange the value of proper balanced nutrition. But the condition of the child or the mother, the father, must be at a level where it is maintained and sustained. Right? We're not telling people not to have their television or their computer or their phone, because the plate doesn't stop you from getting your signal. But what it does, it cleans up the environment. It assists the environment. It gives it a very peaceful, calming atmosphere. But you have to be using it to believe the truth about this thing.
Exactly.
It's like nothing you've experienced until you, that's why we will allow you to, as you mentioned, Dan will let you use the plate for a certain period of time. Trust me, you don't return it after you've used it. You wouldn't want to, you know. I loaned one of my posters to a friend of mine, and trust me, he just bought a pendant, and he brought back my plate. He wants one of these. Even though he's wearing this, he wants one.
Oh, yeah.
Because he used to sleep as I do. I sleep with this right next to me. So if I am watching TV, which is a distance away from me, I still keep this, because in my room, I also have a fan right over my bed. I don't take chances. I have my phones plugged in. They tell you don't plug them in your bedroom. I don't keep them on at night. If my phones are on, I still have my plate with me, and I have this right in there. I am a self-defense expert. I love myself, and I want to be at peace in the best way, in a healthy environment.
That's so beautiful.
My adding to what you just said a while ago, Will. I appreciate that.
What is this thing that we're talking about? So this would be the one, this is what the farmers use, right? So just real quick, and then we can get into it. But this, it's 4 stacks of plates, but these plates have been engineered. So the actual structure of the metal is altered in how it reflects light, making it so it reflects this coherent light that's harmonizing. We've done the research, we've done the studies, that we can harmonize and we can change the quality of the blood. We can increase chlorophyll production because the environment is balanced. When we balance things, nature thrives. And we don't want to just survive. We want to thrive. That's what we're doing. That's what essential energy is all about. Helping us not just survive, but thrive. Markus, how important is a balanced environment to the farms that you work on?
It's absolutely fundamental. As I mentioned earlier, lack of awareness does not allow us to see, because we have been so compromised and so shortchanged. We don't even know what an electromagnetically vibrant environment feels like, looks like, sounds like, and smells like. It's a magical play human technology will never be able to match, because it's so grandiose in its self-reaffirming of life force and energy, that we can only humbly really admire it and fall in tune of it, and then realize that most of the work is already being done, and we can just with ease tune in and This is where I even meet that technology and the modem you are using there, which is really undoing some of the stress our ecosystems are going through. And this is from a cellular level to the microorganisms in the soil, and all these magic, which there normally would happen, is just very compromised at the moment. And this is the shortchanging, because we shortchanging also the quality of information we are consuming when consuming food and herbs. And therefore, we literally shutting down, this magical play, and then we're trying to compromise and over compromise with technological solutions, which really have us spinning crazy, because we have to buy these inputs, we become computerized monitors of an ecosystem which magically would function on its own and can do by far greater than we can even conceptualize. And technology, however, I don't bash. I want us to embrace it appropriately, because there are some very useful ways, to even deal with irrigation. So we can compensate in a very smart way. And since I love physics, that is something what I love from I'm a child, and that's why I even would like to even experience and explore further, maybe even with you, Will, what is taking place there, how we can assist that natural play of life to unfold freely and in harmony again, because we put in everything under so much stress. I think in the time to come, these kind of engagements now with increased awareness and with appropriate technology, which will always groom and school us to handle these things a little bit smarter, really use the best technology possible with the minimum effort but maximum effect. And this is where we really want to go in, because it's all about information. It's all about flavor. I'm very involved in sustainable cacao and coffee to some extent, but especially cacao and chocolate is one of the power foods, superfoods we really have, but also as one of the plants where we appreciate flavor. Through flavor, we can tap into a conversation, human to human conversation, and have the conversation open up to the conversation of the ecosystem and the products and the fruits we desire for nutrition, but as well as for some pleasure, and they go hand in hand. I love, and what we should explore even deeper and then share with an audience, so the learning experience can be participatory.
It's amazing us living in different geographies that we think alike. We have, and everything you men have said today just resonates with me right away. In fact, I was in an organization called Association for Appropriate Technology back in the 1970s, and Buckminster Fuller and biodynamics and all that. But I wanted to say with technology, and you brought it up, Dr. Ted, about the immune system and about thinking. You used the word holistic, which on my business card, it says holistic veterinarian. There's a problem that I face in my field with immune systems. And the veterinarians and the medical doctors say your immune system comes from more vaccine, more antibiotics, and more drugs. And that's your immune system. It isn't. Those are chemical crutches that have nothing to do with what we're doing. And when you get the immune system where it should be with genetics and nutrition and removal of poisons and toxins, you do not need the chemical crutches. You do not need vaccine, ever. You do not need antibiotics, ever. You do not need chemical wormers, ever, even in the tropics. And I can tell you this is true because in 1999, actually, I had these epiphanies. When I was in Tortola, I changed my life and came back and took charge into what my life is now. But I realized I don't want these drugs in my practice anymore. I do not use any of those chemical crutches. And the animals I work with, the farmers can be fearless of bird flu, boogeyman, going to get you. They don't have to worry about swine flu. They don't need to worry about all the plagues of mankind because we have an immune system and our animals. And a huge part of that is to get rid of pollution. And that includes electronic pollution. Unless you do with that, you're going to need a lot of vaccine. You can't get enough vaccine to make you healthy. I call animals that can't live without their drugs because, if you take away their drugs, their vaccines and things, they all die. Those are what I call drug addicts. Animals that are drug addicts are animals that can't live without their drugs. And so what we do is we replace that one by one. We don't pull away the crutches because then they would all die. But before we pull away the crutches, we put these other things in place. We get their nutrition fixed. We get their environment fixed. We get rid of the EMF pollution. Then we can slowly wean them off of their drugs because they're descendants of animals that were born. They're only alive because their parents and grandparents were on drugs, just like our children today. They become weak. And a kid today, if you don't know what you're doing, your kid will die or get chronically sick or horrible illnesses because we've allowed things to get weak with our nutrition and with our child care, and even our genetics. So we got a long battle ahead of us, and that would be my advice for the Caribbean: is don't succumb to GMO crops and the parts of technology that are terrible, that have no future. They are called the future, but they have no future. Stick with what God created. Stick with what is natural and what we know has been around for a long time. People say those poor people back around the time of Jesus, they were dying, they were sick, they didn't have all these modern vaccines. No, they weren't. If they were sick, it's because they didn't have enough food to eat.
Yeah,
or filthy conditions.
Yeah.
They were healthier than us.
They didn't have the kind of bread we have today.
That's right.
They didn't have it.
They weren't drinking Coca-Cola.
Yeah. I appreciate, if I may, Will, you just mentioned about immunity and the approach taken, with the animals to keep them safe, keep them immune, strong. Well, I do the same similar approach with my clients, with my patients. They come with a disorder or so-called dis-ease or disease. I must find out the origin of the disorder. If I'm going to take charge of the organism, I have to start from the constitutionality of the person I'm going to assist. Then I go to the condition that they're in at this present time. But how long this condition has been plaguing this individual. So I want to detoxify, purify, and harmonize the environment before I bring in any kind of nourishment, because it will be a waste. So even though I am using the plate, I still follow the same process. I must detoxify and go through that first phase, but there are 4 phases in my program, and the second is to make new baby cells. So the patient must be in good enough condition to manufacture saliva, be it saliva for protein molecules or saliva for carbohydrate molecules. They're different and they require different food elements for either or, because there are only 2 types of salivas that you have. 2. Now, I have to, while I'm making these new baby cells, by creating that new fresh blood system, red and white, I then now have to move forward with the third phase, which is strengthening and nourishing these new baby cells. Well, the environment has to be conducive for the babies.
Mm-hmm. There you
Yeah.
go.
Are you
Yeah.
with me? So the 28 or 30 days that it will take these new babies, I want to make sure that the environment is conducive to the developmental stages of these new babies for the 30 days. The fourth and final, I bring in larger molecules because by that time, these babies are up running around, not crawling anymore. They're running around. You have to chase them. They need larger molecules to last them longer and make them stronger. The point here is, without this process, immunity is not as fast in developing. You have to get them in shape so that they're not at the pediatrician's office
Mhm.
every other week or every week or once or twice a month. And you go to the pediatrician's office and you see a lot of babies in there with running noses and so forth. You know, it is because, again, the endocrine system, the lymphatic system is not up to level. Well, the environment of the food that we're feeding these children, the cow's milk that you're feeding, the cheese and the butter and all these things must be up to level to build that natural immunity for that child or for the mother and as well as father. I just wanted to wedge that piece of information in there about the importance and value of doing it all together to complement the organism as a whole. That's what I'm saying.
That's exactly what I would do with animals. That was well said. That's beautiful.
Exactly.
That detoxification program. You know, there's a guarantee of a lot of business for you with sick children in the future, the way that we're headed. You know, with modern technology, there's always going to be plenty of sick children and plenty of sick animals for me. And our job is really to get rid of our job, right? We don't want to have any business. You know, if we do our job right, we just worked ourselves out of a job.
You mentioned eggs
Mhm.
earlier. It's a big trend now with bodybuilders, and mostly men, and a lot of women too, are eating eggs. I see people eating a dozen eggs a day, some a dozen eggs in the morning. But just imagine this egg craze, to each his own. But I'm saying, just imagine this egg craze with inferior eggs.
Mhm. I know.
The hens are not getting what they need. They're not getting the time they need to live,
Mm-mm.
to get stronger one way or another. They're just doing these chickens to lay eggs. They're laying chickens, but at the same time here, the immunity of that egg yolk
Mhm.
must be, suitable for the development of these baby cells I mentioned earlier.
Mhm. And if you try to hatch those eggs, there's a lot of death in the hatcheries. Those eggs don't have good vitality. So when you buy, if you're going to be a farmer and raise chickens, you buy 100 baby chicks from the hatchery. They'll give you 110 or 115 because so many of them are going to die before they even get to you or the first day you have them. So it shows you what low vitality they have. Same is true of sperm, by the way. These artificial insemination places, that
There you
sperm isn't
go.
any good in those AI bulls, and you might have to breed those cows 3-4 times because the sperm is so weak, and her eggs are so weak that they can't even conceive. So here we are. We can help that. We have all
Yeah.
kinds of
We
tools
have,
to help that.
yeah,
Well,
there you are.
that's kind of what I wanted to tee off on is, Ted, you said it, that you are all about detoxing. Dr. Will, you said the same thing. We're about detoxing. But Ted, one thing you said was, hey, we're all about detoxing, and I still use the plate. Why? Because we are aware that this new EMF pollution is something we have to detox as well. It's this new reality, this new thing that we all have to take into consideration. If you're not protecting yourself from EMF or your farm or your homestead, your garden, you're missing a big thing. I heard just the other day about something about light and how I mean, light is incredibly important. It's a whole nother show in itself. If we were to stand out and look at pure sunlight with no EMF pollution at all, we're getting 100% pure sunlight. It's going to improve our endocrine system, our metabolism, our immune system, our nervous system. Feeds everything, as well as our body clock.
Mhm.
But the moment that you step within the field of a cell tower, that pure sunlight is no longer pure. It's now clouded. Just like if you had a glass of pure water and you put one drop of dirt in there, it's no longer pure.
That's right.
I mean, if you have manure, right, and you put one little drop of manure into a pure glass of water, are you going to want to drink that? No. You want to purify that water. You want to get that clean again. But it's the same thing. We don't realize that just being around cell towers pollutes the quality of the light that our body's receiving, that the animals are receiving, the soil and the plants. Then if you get a cell phone and the blue light that adds on to it, but every cell phone can reach 2 to 3 mile radius.
Mhm.
You might think you're rural when you have the neighbor's house is half a mile away. But if they have a cell phone or 5 in their home and you have 5 phones in your home, you have 10 sources of EMF right there, not even considering the cell towers, the power lines, the radar, the Wi-Fi, the radio towers. So you start to get a picture of how this pollution really explodes and becomes a cloud that is blocking the quality light that our bodies really need. And why then plates like these that allow the body to get harmonized. We have the studies within 10 minutes, your body's being harmonized. You may or may not feel that, but the body's energy, the vitality is starting to shift. And then long term, you have the repair and restore aspect of the body detoxing and healing itself, right? We're just creating this environment that's mitigating the effects of the EMF pollution. And because of the way we've done it, we can have plates that are this size for yourself. You have the light towers, or you have the geofill conditioners that cover whole farms and whole large areas. I mean, even some small towns have got in together with the city council to purchase one for their town because they saw the need for it around their grade school. Again, the children are the future and we need to be investing. That's why I said proceeds out of the Caribbean are going to be poured back into the children. I run a nonprofit. I don't run a business to make money. It's a nonprofit. And now that's in the US, but in Jamaica and the Caribbean, we're going to take those proceeds and we're going to put it back into the future of the Caribbean, back into the students there. It's not about surviving, it's about thriving. Too many of us have spent our whole lifetime just trying to survive when God desired that we thrive. And that's why we're here today. And that's why we're talking about these things. I'd like us to all have like maybe a final comment. It's something that we should have asked or should have talked about in this context of this conversation. Dr. Ted, why don't you begin for us?
Well, all that's said tonight here, I love it. I think this show was most important, most valuable. Okay. What I like about what was said today is that the concern is big. I went to a show not long ago that Marcia Griffiths had in Hope Gardens, and I took my cleanser with me. I went on stage and I took it and I splashed. People saw me walking around like a madman splashing the environment that I was in. I said, what the hell are you doing? What's that? They're thinking it's some voodoo, something. No, I was cleaning my environment, so I took it with me. Okay, where you go with like shows, these big shows, where you're getting all the satellites beaming into that environment, I encourage our artists. Every artist should have one of these when they go on stage. That's my recommendation. And you can just imagine thousands of cell phones congregating in one area, and you have signals coming from everywhere. Okay? And you're there with your phone also. Trust me, that environment is not conducive to good immunity. Once your pineal gland and pituitary glands are not functioning relatively well or optimally, you're going to have problems with the entire organism. Because those two glands, they protect us. The entire endocrine system, they play a very important part of happiness, of peace, of joy, and tranquility. So the endocrine system is crucial for the physical body as a whole. So the blood is what we are after, bringing harmony between red and white cells. That's where nutrition, balanced, healthy, strong nutrition is most important here. This supports that. Get it. If you don't have it, inquire. You can get it from me, you can get it from Dan, but I'd rather you get it one way or another, however you can. Okay? You can go to my website, look it up, you can see it, the information, the scientific rigor, they're there. Go get it. Read about what we have offering to the world, not just the Caribbean, not just Jamaica. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, Ted, real quick, tell them your website, please.
My website is drtedemanuel.com. 1M for Emmanuel.
Okay.
drtedemanuel, or you can write me at tedemanuel@gmail.com. tedemanuel@gmail.com. Write me, find out, inquire. And we are here to help you. If I don't have the information, all the information of what will suffice, I know where to go. Dan has the information. Anything you want to know about what we're doing, we have the information. We're not just here to sell a piece of metal. Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Thank you to Markus and Will for being on our program today. I must thank my assistant. She's sitting here, Laurel Fretchegale, my right-hand person. She's making me smarter and deal with this better. So I must
her. Yeah,
figure out.
Excellent.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laurel. Thank you, Laurel. That's beautiful. Markus, final word for us.
I want to see the three of you all together somewhere down here and prove what can be, should be proven, and continue the conversation and communication and partake in creating solutions within this region, but also bridging into other regions.
Amen.
Wonderful. Beautiful. Thank you for your time today, Markus. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dr. Will?
Okay, I'll just say, I'll make it quick. You mentioned that these affect light. Your plate is light. And it came clear to me very early in life that light is from God, whether it's Buddha, Muhammad, Jah, this is God, and God brings light. And so your job is either you're a bringer of light, and that can be an artist like Mozart with music, or creating the Mona Lisa. This is other forms of light. So you can ask a farmer or anybody, are you bringing light or are you bringing darkness to the world? The darkness to me is the evil part. If your job is squishing the light or destroying the light for others, or if your job is like what Dan is bringing light, and what you men are doing, Markus and Ted, you're bringing light into people's life. This is the side of this large battle we want to be on. We want to be bringers of light, and we want to purify the light. And that's in your practices with the soil and with children, you're bringing light into people's lives, and I want to bring it into farms, and Dan is bringing it for all of us. So God bless the light, and God bless all of you for being part of that.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Will. And thank you guys, thank you all, and for joining this show. We call it the Farming in the Caribbean with Ted, Will, and Markus. But as you can tell, we hit on a lot more, and we just dipped our toe into so many really important topics today that I think we're gonna have to do this show again, and maybe make it a consistent feature that we do, because there are a lot of topics and that cross boundaries, continents, and geographic areas that it's affecting all of us now. In the health, the health of our children, the health of our world. Look, God gave us something to steward, and we are helping show people how to steward. It's a responsibility that we all have, and it's a responsibility we all take very seriously. And if we slow down and we take into that opportunity just to stay aware of our surroundings, stay aware of the energy in ourselves and in our environment, the truth will reveal itself. The light will shine the path for us, and we'll walk down that path, and we will be good stewards, and we'll be told, well done, because we did what we were given, what we were charged to do. We were given a work, given a job, and we were doing that. And we can live in two different systems, right? There can be a system that is going down this evil kind of overbearing control tech phase that is sweeping the world right now, but we don't have to let that affect our property, our farm, ourselves, our family. We can live in that other system, and so let's do it. Let's make the choice to live healthy, live pure, live right, and love our neighbors as we love ourselves. Love our plants as we love ourselves. Love our animals, right? They actually like really good food just as much as we do. So let's do it together. So thanks for being here today. If you are watching this, please share this. This is an incredibly important show, an important topic, but this show today is gonna wake a lot of people up and give them an awareness and a hope that yes, they can take a step forward into a brighter future. Look, my shirt says Essential Energy, let your light shine brighter. That's the name of the game. So shine bright today. Thank you very much for being a part of it.
Thank you, man.